Hello, Tarantula lovers. I'm Alex, and welcome back to Tarantula Haven. So, what was all that about? Well, it started out with a post that I had seen recently on one of the Facebook groups that I follow, the Tarantula Facebook groups I follow, and a person posted a picture of their tarantula enclosures, and they said, "My broke, you know what, can't buy a decent enclosure." So, it kind of struck a nerve with me because it reminded me of when I first was starting out. And of course, I'm not wealthy. I'm a teacher. I don't make tons and tons of money. So I was buying tarantulas and I was buying things that would make a decent enclosure, but I was looking at regular household items that would make decent enclosures and not necessarily tarantula enclosures themselves. Now, at the time, there weren't all these companies that were coming up that were making enclosures specifically for tarantulas, but you still had your Exoterras and your Zoomeds and all that kind of stuff. But in my opinion, at the time, they were a little bit cost prohibitive. So there were, of course, your Exoterra mini talls and your nano talls and so on. But they were a little bit more costly than I wanted to get into, especially when I'm dealing with spiderlings and so on. But as my tarantulas started getting bigger, that's when I started looking into these other enclosures. But then you start having an issue where you have several tarantulas that are starting to need new enclosures. And of course, you want to do the right thing. You want to get decent enclosures for them. But if you're talking about several tarantulas and you kind of want to do it all in one shot, it gets a little cost prohibitive. So that's where you get creative. Now, I want to preface this with you should not be ashamed of your tarantula enclosures. Unless you're planning on putting them on display for some kind of exhibit or something that people come over and look at, then the tarantula enclosure is pretty much up to you and what you can afford. So don't be ashamed of what you have, because if you have an adequate amount of space, plenty of substrate, you keep it fed and watered and take care of its needs, then you're perfectly okay, and your tarantula will be okay as well. It doesn't need a showroom in order to survive and thrive and so on. So as long as you love your pet and you've got its needs taken care of, then don't be ashamed of your enclosures. Now, I say that because personally, I have also been ridiculed for my enclosures here and there. I did an entire tarantula room tour one time, and people got on to me about certain things. And of course, with mine, one of them was a thing where I had a tarantula in too small of an enclosure and later on rehoused it into a proper enclosure. But those things happen. When you start getting into a lot of tarantulas, sometimes things get away from you, and then you want to move on into getting something better for them later on. But they can get a little bit big for you, and they'll still be in that small enclosure. I try to avoid that. I try to take care of it as soon as possible, but time just goes by and sometimes you just miss them. Now, when I was first starting out, there weren't these companies that were already devoted to making tarantula enclosures, and those things started popping up later on, but you still had things like Exoterra and Zoomed and so on. Yes, they cost 30 some odd dollars, or they get up into $50, $60. That gets a little bit expensive, and when it's your own personal money that your family depends on, you don't want to be drawing too much from that in order to accommodate your hobby here. So that was where I had to be creative, and I think that was part of the fun in keeping tarantulas, was also being creative and finding ways to make new enclosures that look decent and that you can keep your tarantula in and still enjoy it. So of course, a lot of people still do this kind of stuff. You go out and look for things like little Amec boxes like this, and they come in all kinds of different sizes, and I still keep them. I still use them because not everything needs to be in a super nice tarantula cribs enclosure or Exoterra or Zoomed or anything like that. I personally will not go buy those things for spiderlings or anything like that because they grow so fast. I tend to avoid that kind of stuff, and I put them in a temporary enclosure that works just fine. But if your budget just does not allow it, it's good to look around and see if there are other things that you can possibly use to make as an enclosure. I even used to use these little plastic boxes like this. I think they're index card boxes or something that I used to find in the stationery department in Walmart. And they're super cheap. You put a few holes in them and you got yourself a tarantula enclosure. And in fact, I think one of my viewers said they used to call these Alex boxes. So yeah, anything that you can use that you can keep a tarantula in and still take care of its needs, then you're perfectly okay. Now, I happen to be fortunate enough that with my YouTube channel, I've gotten attention here and there from different vendors and stuff that send me stuff. I'm an affiliate with Tarantula Cribs, and he sends me stuff as well. So that helps me out a great deal. But, of course, my hobby is big, and my hobby has grown a lot more than what they can send me, and I can't rely on them to send me stuff all the time. I do buy Tarantula Cribs from time to time, my own, but he sends me some as well when he wants me to showcase them on my channel. I buy some Exoterra here and there, and it will come. If you're interested in getting into these bigger enclosures, I mean, I didn't buy them all at one time. I rehoused them here and there, and of course it helped me with my channel because I had something to show, and I would buy maybe 1 or 2 enclosures at a time and try to do it then. And it eventually got to the point where I could accommodate all of my tarantulas into all of the different types of enclosures that I have. So don't fret about trying to keep your tarantula in what you consider a decent enclosure. Use what you can. If you save up your money and you buy stuff here and there, maybe you can purchase one of those decent enclosures, but as long as your tarantula's needs are met, then you're perfectly okay as far as your tarantula is concerned, and you can still enjoy it and love it even though it's not in a Tarantula Cribs or Exoterra or Zoom Ed or whatever it is that you consider to be decent. I still have my green bottle blue in a basketball display case enclosure that I did a video on, and I still have it in there because it's perfectly okay. It loves it in there. It's thriving. So that's where it stays, and I haven't changed it since. So that's the focus of my video today. I saw where someone had posted on Facebook that they had seen mainstay shoe boxes at Walmart for $10 for a pair. And I had to go see what that was all about because that's a pretty decent deal. Now, I've used shoe boxes before, but these are $10 for 2. And this is an example of a shoebox, which I still have brand new and is still in the wrapper and everything. But I've gotten this one from the Container Store, and I've held on to this one for a little while. But at the time, they were $12 and some change for a single shoebox. Now, the acrylic on this is a little bit thicker than this one. I've done other enclosures with them, and they've lasted me for a good while, and they haven't yellowed or anything like that. And they've made decent enclosures, but that's about $12, almost $13 for a single one. And look at the floor space on that. And then when you look at this one, this is a little bit lighter acrylic. It's a little bit thinner. You could definitely tell. Probably a little bit more brittle, so you have to be careful with it. But I think they're a little bit deeper. And if you look at that floor space. There's way more floor space here than on those smaller enclosures, and way cheaper. $10 for 2 of them. So I wanted to see if I could make a decent enclosure out of that because I have a tarantula that was gifted to me. It is a Lasiodora parahibana, and it's definitely in a way too small enclosure. And I think that this would make a decent enclosure, at least a temporary one, until I could get it into something bigger, because it is a large tarantula and it's way too big to be in the small enclosure that it's in right now. So don't fuss at me because I'm about to put it into a larger enclosure, but it's been doing fine in the smaller one. It just doesn't have enough room. Okay, so here it is. You've got some ventilation holes already on the side, on both sides, so I'm probably going to have to drill some new ventilation holes on both sides right here. And the lid is the only thing that I see that's probably going to be problematic. So the lid just basically sits on top. It doesn't latch in any way. It doesn't have anything that envelops the sides that's going to keep it from opening very easily. So if you have something that actually any tarantula would be strong enough to push this up. So that is going to be a problem. Now, most people will probably just tape it shut and they'll be perfectly okay. If that's what you want to do, then that's perfectly fine. But I got a 3D printer for Christmas, and I think I can probably find a solution for that that would be better than putting tape. So I'm going to use that. All right, so there is my Lasiodora parahibana, and she came in this enclosure when I got her. Now, of course, she wasn't in this when she was at the other person's house, but this is what I've kept her in. And she has plenty of room to move around in here, but it's still way too small. So this is going to give her a lot more space to walk around in. And I'm going to go ahead and transfer her over. She is just a beautiful specimen. I believe she's a little bit larger than my own. Now, Lasiodora parahibana are no joke. They are a formidable tarantula. They get some good size. They are giants, just like the Theraphosa blondi and the other Theraphosas. They don't get as large, probably top out 8 or 9 inches, but it's still a massive tarantula. If I compare it to my hand there, you can see how big she actually is. So I've always wanted to hold her. And I don't know if I'm going to be brave enough to do that today. And they have some very, very bad urticating hairs, so I do have to be careful with that. Oh, and there you go. Look at that. I'm getting a little threat posture there. So that may not be a good idea. Yeah, look at that. She does not mess around. Come on, girl. You wanna walk over? Or are you just gonna threaten me? Come on, come this way. Now, I'm not seeing fangs, but she is letting me know that she's not happy with me poking at her with the stick. There we go. Come on, let's get you to move. Now, I've had occasions where she's walked out of this enclosure and I've had to corral her and kind of get her to go in the right direction. But I've never been brave enough to hold her because I'm so afraid of those fangs. Those fangs are really big. Let's try with some tongs. Come on. Oh, there's those fangs. Come on, all you gotta do is walk over. There we go. Come on, climb up. Climb up. Here it is. Do I dare? Ooh, she's like, no, don't touch me. There you go, you did it all on your own. Look at all that web. And they are notorious for laying down web everywhere they go. Alright, you're going a little too far now. Come on. We're going too far. Get back in. There you go. Nope, you don't want to go that way. Come on. Good girl. All right. So here we are. He definitely doesn't want to walk over on my hand. And that's good. That's what she should do. But it sure would be cool if I could handle her. Alright, I'll leave you alone. Now, I fed her last night, but I'm going to see if she's hungry today. I wanted to try to handle her, so I made sure that she was well fed last night. But let's see if she'll be willing to take something today. I think she sees it more as a threat right now than anything. People always ask me what kind of roach this is. These are discoid roaches. Florida legal roaches. We can't have dubia here. There you go. You recognize that? No? Alright, I'll leave it here for you. She just won't walk over to me. Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, so here's the part where this enclosure fails, is the lid just sits on top. And she's well strong enough that she could just push this lid up. There's nothing holding it in place. So I designed these clips. And these clips I 3D printed. I used Tinkercad to make them. So I just basically took measurements of the edges here. Fortunately, there's a little lip around the edges that can hold those on. So all I have to do is just put them on like this and snap them down. And that's good to go. And that's going to stay. And they're not especially easy to get on sometimes. There we go. Oops, I'm putting it on wrong. There we go. All right, and now this lid is not going anywhere. So it's really cool that I could make something completely out of nothing. And now I've got some snaps to hold my lid closed. So there you go, a nice enclosure here, a decent enclosure that you can house an LP in or anything smaller than that. And I definitely recommend it if you can figure out a way to keep that lid down. So you can use tape on it. If you're creative, you can come up with something like I did. But as long as you keep that lid down, then you should be good to go. Lots of floor space, plenty of floor space for her to get around. My other LP is in a 10-gallon enclosure, which just has a little bit more floor space than this. But for the most part, it's almost the same. It doesn't have the vertical height, of course. The other LPs, every now and then she'll get up there and she'll climb around, and I worry about her getting caught on the screen lid at the top, but it's got large holes, so she never gets snagged on it. But I always worry about that. And I worry about a fall if she falls down and hurts herself. But for the most part, she's been fine. There's nothing sharp in there that she can hurt herself on, and it's nice and cushiony and everything. So she's never fallen and gotten hurt or anything. But this will make sure that she stays nice and low and doesn't venture upwards, and she's got plenty of room to move around. So I feel pretty good about this. I like that she's got way more space to move around. I may take my other LP and move her into the other box like this. So, of course, there is the problem with the flimsy lid, the lid coming off. You can tape it, however you can figure out to make sure that you keep that held on there in place, then, more power to you. I used a 3D printer to create these clips. So I'll tell you what, if you have a 3D printer, I will link the STL file for you, and that way you can download it and print it yourself. Or if you do not have a 3D printer, but you would like a set of these clips, I'll ask my wife if she'll put them on the Etsy store, and I'll print a few, and I'll charge like maybe $1 plus shipping or whatever, so that you can have some clips to put on these mainstay boxes. And they'll be specifically for the Walmart mainstay boxes. So the message for today, don't let anyone shame you about your enclosures. If you are happy, your tarantula is happy, and you're taking care of its needs, then don't even worry about it. Whatever you you can use that is nice, that you can keep it in and you can have your tarantulas safe and secure, then you are good to go. It's not about having all these nice display enclosures and everything like that. They're not all showcases, but in my case, I want to have them in decent enclosures because of course I'm on camera and I'm projecting to you. So if I had all kind of hodgepodge here, then people of course would look at me differently and probably not take me very seriously. But I still have hodgepodge. It's just on the sides and you don't see it. But I'm slowly but surely working my way to getting everybody in a decent enclosure, even if it's something like this. But, it's one of those things where it's a process. Don't expect it to happen overnight. Take care of it piece by piece, tarantula by tarantula, and eventually you will get there. And that wraps it up for me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you want to support this channel, I have a Teespring store where I sell Tarantula Haven merchandise. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. And if you'd like to become a patron yourself, there's a link down below in the description, as well as all the others, as well as a link to the STL files or a link to the Etsy store where you can buy those clips if you need them. And until next time, keep loving them tarantulas and stay creative.